Affordable and accessible. India's second largest low-cost airline, SpiceJet, extended its wings into the healthcare business. With cheapest RT-PCR testing facilities and mobile laboratories, Spice Health stands up to the brand value of affordability and accessibility. Introducing the leader behind India's revolutionary healthcare service, Avani Singh. A 24-year-old graduate from Stanford University, the CEO of Spice Health. India's young entrepreneur now plans to extend Spice Health for vaccine deliveries across the country.
I'm Jasper Reid, and this is Billion Dollar Idea. Today we're joined, and we're very excited to be joined by our guest, Avani Singh. Avani, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jasper.
We're really excited to have you here. Over the last few weeks, we've been interviewing entrepreneurs who are closer to the end of the journey than the beginning, and in some cases have made the fabled billion. And we often ask them how they'd like to be remembered. In your case, of course, it's way too early to even think about that. So we'll ask you a different question. Where do you think you want to get to, Avani?
Jasper, when I started this company, it's only been about 3 months since I started this company. And I think we have come a long way since we first started. We are conducting affordable and scalable RT-PCR COVID tests for Indians. We have conducted over 1 million tests in the 3 months that we have been operational. I think the goal is evolving. And the goal is to keep providing affordable and accessible diagnostics and healthcare across the country. So I think COVID is just a starting point. And of course, we would like to tackle all diseases, infectious and non-infectious, that India is dealing with, and help the country overcome a lot of its battles in a scalable and affordable manner that actually makes sense for Indians.
Okay, that's great. It's a great ambition. And tell us this, Avani. There are people that would say this is simply a stopgap before you move upwards into the broader Spice Group or join your father at SpiceJet. Do you see this as a longer-term plan, or are you marking time?
I don't think that I'm marking time. I don't think that I had any intention of starting a company like this. I also did not intend to join SpiceJet at this time in my life. I was actually working in consulting before I started this company. I was working at McKinsey, and prior to that, I was studying at Stanford in the US. And while I did think that later in life I would perhaps join SpiceJet, this was unexpected. This company was born out of the need for more testing in India. And now that I've embarked on this journey, I intend to stick to it, and I intend to make a difference in healthcare. And eventually I may end up joining SpiceJet, but I'm not thinking about that at the moment.
Well, good for you. And tell us around the thinking. Tell us about the thinking around the branding. You've gone for the overarching Spice brand. Did you think about different brands? What's the thought process there?
SpiceJet is, of course, my family company. It's my father's company, it's my company, it's our company. And I would be lying, and I don't think that I even want to claim that Spice Health is independent completely of that. I, of course, use SpiceJet's resources. My father is my biggest mentor. I sit right next to him in office. So the companies work very, very closely together. And I do think that the Spice brand, of course, helps us achieve much more, much faster. And I am not ashamed to accept that and to use that platform to serve millions of Indians and to really make a difference.
It's a fantastic mission, Avani, and a very timely one. But take us back a little bit, if you will, to when you were a younger woman. What were the dreams and aspirations then, whether it was at modern school in Delhi or whether it was in Stanford or your year in Oxford? What were you thinking then?
I think from a very early age, impact has really driven me. So when I was in school, in modern school in Delhi, even then I was driven by impact. I worked at an NGO near my house, a non-profit organization, which then led me to start my own non-profit when I was in school. And this non-profit looked to serve economically backward women in India. And I think that's what really kept me going at the time. Same with college. I've always been driven by impact, and beyond college too, and even today. And I think that's what kind of has always kept me going. So as a younger woman or today, my mission has remained unchanged, that I want to make the biggest impact that I can possibly make.
And when you look across to similarly large countries, for example, China, Avani, who famously have lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty, do you think there are things that we in India can learn from China or other geographies?
Certainly. I think there's a lot of learning to be done from countries around the world. I think some models work, some don't. Some work in the geographies that they belong, and some may be more easy to adopt in a country like India. And I think that without learning from economies around the world, it's very difficult to continue to make that impact. So what I'm trying to say is that I think that there's an amalgamation. I think that there are some things that are so crucial to a country like India that only work in a country like this, and some that we need to pick up from countries around the world and adopt here.
Okay, so the knowledge and the development is sort of a hybrid. Let's go back a bit, if we can, Avani, to your personal entrepreneurial journey. And of course, you're sitting next to your father, who's a very experienced entrepreneur, but you're a young entrepreneur. Let's talk a little bit about the kind of tools and the systems and the knowledge that you're developing. And let's pick up a couple of areas. Let's pick up, first of all, how do you manage? How have you learned how to manage? How do you interact with teams? Do you do it like your father? Is it a personal way of doing it? Talk to us a little bit about that, if you could.
Again, I think it's a mix. I, of course, learned from my father, and I'm quickly realizing that there are many things that I do that are very similar to him, perhaps because, of course, I've grown up with him, I've grown up with my parents, and because I take inspiration from him and I learn from him. And I'm also quickly realizing that there are things that are unique to me and that work for me and may not have worked for him, and vice versa. So I think it's a mix, but it's a huge security and a sense of comfort and an inspiration to know that he is there to guide me when I get stuck or when I don't know what to do in my managerial journey. Because like you said yourself, I'm only learning. Every day is a learning for me.
Okay, and just give us a couple of examples, Avani, about how you're different to your father. How do you behave differently to him?
I think a lot of what my father does comes from a lot of from the experience that he's had, of course. And I'm young and I'm new. So there may be situations where I learn more from my team than they perhaps learn from me, since a lot of them have, of course, been in industry for longer than me. But I think to be able to see that bird's eye view, to be able to form that relationship with your team, that it's a mutual learning, but the end goal is the same. I think that's something that's perhaps unique to me for my age and for my lack of years in the industry when compared to my father.
Okay, and when you think about the difference between your father's generation and your own generation, Avani, in terms of teamwork, interaction, management, do you see it being broadly different cultures, or do you think it's an evolution?
I think my father does tend to have more of a teamwork attitude than I have observed typically in India. But yes, I think that my generation believes probably more in working together. And again, that could be coming from my age, from how old I am when I'm managing a team. But yes, I do think that there's less of a hierarchy perhaps because of that difference in experience in me and my generation.
Is that a good thing?
I think it depends on the situation.
Okay, that's a good answer. We heard last week from Niranjan Hirandani, great titan of real estate in Mumbai. And he was telling us, Avani, that the current generation, particularly millennials, Gen Z, people of your generation, if you like, have it a lot easier as entrepreneurs in India now. Do you buy that?
I'm not so sure about that. I think our journey, I think my generation has it different from my father's generation. But looking at my father's struggles, I don't think he had it easy. And I think he really made a difference and he really achieved a lot, given very little. And I don't think that I can claim that I have it difficult. I do have it easier in the sense that I have this platform, but I wouldn't say that that's typical of most entrepreneurs my age either. I don't think we can generalize in that sense.
Fair enough. Going back to the differences between the generation and how they communicate, how much are you a fan and a buyer of social media, of digital communication, of workplace communication and all of that. Are you bought into that?
Absolutely. I think digital media is very powerful. I think it's both a boon and a bane, and I think most people would agree with me on that. But I also think that the power of social media is immense, and today, especially with COVID, our journey towards digitization has expedited exponentially. While it was inevitable, COVID has of course made us far more digital, far quicker. And I was talking to someone the other day who said that if you don't exist digitally, you don't exist at all. Talking from a company perspective, which is a stretch. But I do think that you can touch millions of people and reach millions of people through social media around the world. So I think that's very powerful, and you just have to use that tool right, and hope to make an impact through it.
And staying on COVID, Avani, what's your forecast for the business landscape post-COVID? Who do you see as the winners or the losers?
I think a lot of businesses have benefited and a lot have suffered because of COVID. And I think that a lot of businesses that have suffered have potential to come out of it. Aviation, for example. I'll take that example since it's close to home. It has taken a hit. It is perhaps one of the businesses that has taken the biggest hit during COVID. I do believe that we can come out of it, but I do think that the aviation landscape will look very different going forward. For example, leisure travel may increase far more and business travel may reduce. So I think that we need to evolve with the changing times, and there is potential for even the most suffered businesses to come out of this.
And to that extent, are you bullish on the prospects for the Indian economy? I mean, we're famously being asked to develop a 5 trillion economy by Prime Minister Modi. Do you think that's possible?
I think it's possible. We might take a little longer, maybe, but I do think it's possible. I do think we can come out of it.
Let's go from the macro back to the micro and your own experience day to day. I mean, like all entrepreneurs, Avani, you're working all the time, you're under pressure, you're coming up with ideas, you're managing teams and so forth. Do you find that stressful? What stresses you out?
I think, yes. I would be lying if I said there were not days when I get stressed. But I think that it's important to then channel that stress into productivity. And I think that Stanford, in fact, was a great learning for something like that. I don't think I've experienced stress in the sense that it exists today before Stanford. And I think it really taught me to deal with that stress and to channel it into something productive. And I think I take those learnings with me today. So even when I get stressed, I try to reason with myself about why I'm stressed and how I can channel that into something that can be productive in the short run.
And just out of interest, Avani, since we're talking about the American education system, do you see a place like Stanford, which is obviously, wall to wall with talent? It's a top tier college. Do you believe we have enough of those in India? Do you think the experience of American university is fundamentally different to India? What are your thoughts on that?
I do think that the experience is different. We have incredible institutions in India, Jasper. I mean, the IITs are uncomparable, in my opinion. And now a lot of them are, in fact, adopting that US mentality of entrepreneurship and thinking outside of the box, which is what I would like to see more of in India. That ability to think out of the box, to not fit into a mold, and to be your completely unique, different self. That's what I would like to see more of. But we have incredible minds in India, we have incredible institutions in India, and we have tons of potential in India in the education space.
I think we'd all agree with the potential, but right now, Avani, there is a school of thought that says that the Indian learning experience is overly deterministic and not inferential enough, that it doesn't allow freedom of expression and creativity. Do you think that's an ill-founded prejudice, or there's something in that?
I do think that the Indian education system is different. You're right in saying that it's, more goal-oriented perhaps in the sense that, like I said, uniqueness, in my opinion, in my limited experience, uniqueness is not something that Indian education system has necessarily focused on. But now we are moving away from that. There are entrepreneurship cells at IITs across the country and at other universities as well. I give the example of IIT because my father went there, because I worked with IIT while I was consulting, and so I give that example. I think that we are moving away from that typical Indian mindset of fitting into a mold, and we're moving more towards entrepreneurship and innovation. And I think that that's the future in Indian education.
Okay, and do you see the Indian entrepreneur, because of the conditions in which they operate, as being in any way different to entrepreneurs in other markets? I mean, we've heard guests on this show say that India is such a tough, challenging market that we breed, kind of entrepreneurs who are amongst the world's best. What's your thoughts on that?
I completely agree with that. I agree that India breeds incredible entrepreneurs. I think there is also some value to the traditional Indian education system in the traditional sense, because the core is so strong that the people who then want to build on that and make a difference and start something of their own, they have such a strong foundation to rely on. And even if you see around the world, there are so many Indian entrepreneurs doing great work, and so I do think that Indian entrepreneurs have shown that they can go a long way.
Okay, let's go back to Spice Health. Tell us a bit more about that. Why is it different, Spice Health? Why is it going to win?
So the very foundation of Spice Health has been very similar, in fact, to the foundation of SpiceJet, which is to provide affordable and accessible service to Indians. And I think that's the key. At a time when coronavirus RT-PCR tests were 2,400 rupees in Delhi, we launched them for just 499 rupees. That's 1/5 of the price of what tests were at the time, and before that it was even more than that. And we also launched them in these mobile laboratories, so they could be accessible in the remotest areas around the country. And I think that really sets us apart: affordability, accessibility, and scalability. And I truly believe in that mindset, not only for healthcare but also for other industries. And right after us, in fact, many states cut down their prices for RT-PCR tests. They became far more affordable. And I would like to think that we had a small role to play in that as well.
And Avani, what's your forecast for VC Day, Victory Against COVID Day in India?
I hope that we can beat it soon, Jasper. We have seen incredible progress for example, in Delhi. The positivity rate now is very, very low in Delhi. That said, we are seeing spikes in other parts of the country, in Maharashtra, Kerala, and other parts of the country. That is concerning. We have new strains of the virus coming in some parts of the country. In fact, Spice has set up a genome sequencing lab at the Delhi airport to identify these new strains quickly and isolate people with these strains quicker. So while we are on an upward trajectory, we are seeing some spikes now. So that is concerning, but I think that testing is really the key. Testing and vaccination, of course, eventually.
Well done for playing your role in it, Avani, and fingers crossed for a positive outcome somewhere in the near future. Let's go back, if we can, a bit to the kind of interface between your personal life and business. People like you or I, Avani, are obviously coming from a tremendously privileged position, with families who've invested in us and who we can lean on. Of course, that's not the case for the vast majority of India or frankly, any country. What's your advice to entrepreneurs out there that don't have a family structure or don't have any background in it?
My biggest advice is believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, truly, it's very difficult for people to believe in you. And I would say that for entrepreneurs with privilege, with a family backing, as well as those without. And I think it's very important to find opportunity in adversity and to really see what is needed. And I think if you can get in a place where there really is a need and you can really solve a problem and believe in your solution to that problem, you can come a lot closer to actually making an impact and becoming successful.
Okay, and just on a related topic, I'm lucky enough to have twin 13-year-old daughters. So I'm very interested, clearly, in their future. On the subject of women as entrepreneurs and women in business in India, it's a pretty imbalanced picture, frankly, versus many other parts of the world. But what's your thinking? Is it improving? are you feeling optimistic about the gender ratios and girl power?
I do think it's improving. I do think, compared to where we were 15, 20 years ago, it is improving just in my field. I mean, look at some incredible women entrepreneurs. Kiran Shaw, for example, is one of the biggest names in healthcare. So I think that it is improving. Spice Health as well is a very female-led company. In fact, most of my senior management is female. That said, we do also have a long way to go. I think women need to work a little bit harder to maybe have their voices heard. But I would say that it's very important for us to realize that our voice is very, very important, and we should ensure that it is heard so we can only move up.
Moving on from Avani Singh, the businesswoman, to Avani Singh, the woman in your personal life, what are your interests? How do you wind down from work? What else is it that kind of you think about outside of business and entrepreneurship?
I would say I have a decent number of interests. I got my private pilot license earlier last year, and I really enjoy flying, and I'm very sad that because of COVID I haven't been able to fly as much. So that's something that I look forward to doing when the situation improves a little bit. But other than that, I mean, I love hanging out with my friends and my family, of course. That's my go-to kind of thing to do when I come back. I recently got into skiing in Kashmir. Now that a lot of Indians are, visiting places around India rather than abroad, we're discovering our country far more than we would before. So I've recently gotten into skiing. I've gotten into hiking. I play golf. I play the piano.
That's a good enough list. But I'll see you on the slopes of Gulmarg. We were there last week, so see you there next February. But going back to your friends, Avani, what do they say about you? What do your oldest friends say about you?
I always say that the most important thing to hold on to in life is the people in your life, and I truly mean that, because I think that my friends and my family have seen me through the highest highs and the lowest lows, and they're nothing but supportive. Both ways, whether it's making a joke about something silly and just laughing about it, or if it's being there for me when I'm crying or when I'm doing really well. They're my support system. So they've been very proud of me. They've been very encouraging. And I don't think that I would be anywhere without my friends and my family.
No, that's great. That's very well said. And just staying on you, Avani, and we're sort of in the final straight here, but who are your heroes? Who do you look up to out there, whether it's from the world of business or arts or sport?
I think, cliched as it sounds, I do look up to my parents a lot for everything that they've done to ensure that me and my sister have the best possible lives that we could have, and for always letting us follow our dreams and follow our heart and being there even if we fail.
And again, as a father, I know that I irritate my daughters no end. Is there anything irritating about your father at work?
I grew up an only child, and I always said that my father was more like my sibling when I was growing up. Like, he always stole my ice cream. He was always my sibling growing up. So even at work, we have tuffles, but they're about very minor things usually. I mean, so far, touch wood.
I'm sure that's the case, and it's a very unfair question, Avani, to ask someone, and I'm sure your father's incredibly proud of you. Look, we've loved talking to you. We wish you the best of luck with Spice Health and with your future career, and we'll have you back on the show when you've made your first personal billion. Avani Singh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Jasper. Great speaking to you as well.
Billion-dollar idea. Co-powered by Citroën. Inspired by you.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, Russia,